spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. You're in the sweet spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. You're in the sweet spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world.
Welcome to the Sweet Spot. My name is Lynn, your host, and Ken's my co-host. Ken, how's it going?
Oh, Lynn, it is going. I am so happy to be here.
Yeah.
And, wow, after the last episode we had, it took a while to recover from that. Whew.
It's quite the extravaganza. This is episode 301.
301. That seems hard to believe.
I know.
Oh, okay.
We're here, though. Ken and I are both former Disneyland Custodial cast members, and we talk about Disneyland. We also authors of the book series, Cleaning the Kingdom. We have 2 books out with 2 separate titles. And, well, they're called Cleaning the Kingdom, and they have subtitles. So they're 2 different books, 2 different material in each book. So if you don't have the second book, I still have autographed copies on our website, autographed by both of us. So if you want to get the latest book that came out in, what was that, 2019? So not even 2 years ago. So
That was 2019. Ooh.
yeah, so
Yeah.
get that. Also, both books are on Kindle, and the first book's on audio. We're working on the second one that will be out hopefully in the next year here. And yeah, you can get them on Amazon too. So also wanted to mention we had talked about we added some tiers to our Patreon. We have always had this Patreon, and it's for people that want to help support the show, be a part of what we're doing. And we've always had this bonus episode, and that's for people that contribute $5 or more on the Patreon per month. You get one bonus episode that Ken and I record, and we added a little extra to one of those for $7.49 or more. And it's a long story on why it's that much, but it's $7.49 or more. You get the extra. And you can do that on Patreon. If you want to upgrade from the $5 to $7.49, you can do that. Or dive right in at $7.49. There's also 2 more categories. There's going to do like a sweep spot seasonal stickers, kind of like a sticker club, I guess you could say. And you can do that for $15 or more a month. And then plus you get all the stuff below that. You get mentioned on our show. You get the bonus episode, the extra custodial bit, and then the stickers that come seasonally 4 times a year. And the next category is $20 or more, and that's all that. Plus, we'll do a quarterly discussion over Skype with you and whoever else is there. Just a discussion about Disneyland and just anything you want to talk about. Ask questions to us. We can talk about a certain attraction, just whatever. So those are the categories. So if you want to check those out, you can go to Patreon and search the Sweet Spot, and go to our website, and there's a link there. So check that out. Really appreciate that. Then we have another sponsor that we just added last episode, and that is Petra's Pentorium. And what it is these pens are really cool. She's created, Naomi McCleary has created some Disney-inspired pens, and you just have to see them. There's like a vintage popcorn box, Disneyland. There's the D, it's kind of a seasonal thing. There's a whole bunch. There's a castle. There's Jack Num Num Cookie, and So there's a Big Thunder Mountain one. She keeps adding different ones, and they're very cool. So you can go to Etsy and search Petra's Pentorium, or go to our website, thesweetspot.com, and click on the link, and you will get 10% off your order by using the promo code SweetSpot. All right. I think we covered everything. We have a great guest, someone that's always on our show, someone that we get excited to talk to, and we're going to talk some history, Disneyland history, so we're looking forward to that. But up first, we're going to have the current events. And now we're going to have the current events. Ken, what do you have for us?
Well, Lynn, since we last recorded, we had the big announcement that so many of our listeners are already aware of, the cancellation of the Disneyland annual pass holder program. So, yes, this news broke on the 15th, or the 14th, the 14th January, sometime middle of the month. And as it says here in the Orange County Register story, which is a combined Brady McDonald and Marla Joe Fisher, it says Disneyland will start issuing prorated refunds to annual pass holders starting Thursday, January 14th. According to Disneyland officials won't say how many people have annual passes, but theme park industry observers have estimated the number to be 100 billion. No, 1 million annual pass holders. It just feels like 100 billion. A new Disneyland membership program will be unveiled at a later date, presumably after Disneyland and Disney California Adventure reopen. As they point out, Disneyland annual pass holders don't need to do anything to receive the prorated refunds. Disney's already got all their information,
Yeah.
They know where you live. They know your bank account. They'll just, they know your credit cards.
Blood type.
That's right, your blood type. They know your Netflix history. Anyway, annual pass holders who had active passes when the park closed on March 14th, that would be 2020, will continue to receive discounts on food and merchandise at Downtown Disney and Buena Vista Street until a new membership program is announced. Disney will boost AP discounts to 30% on select dates from January 18th to February 25th. That's 2021 for those of you who are late listeners, and that's on select merchandise. Yeah. So Laughing Place covered the story too, of course. They said the Premier Passport will be canceled after March 31st, 2021, which is the pass type that offered access to both Disneyland and Walt Disney World theme parks. Premier Pass holders will be able to renew their passes as a Walt Disney World Resort annual pass through April 30th, 2021. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I know that's the big news, all over social media. We've heard it on many podcasts already. I think that this is not a surprise. It's surprising, but it's not a surprise as far as that they were going to have to do something with this program, because when you have so many people with their passes already expired during this time when they've been closed. Some people just got them, right before the park's closed.
Well, yeah.
It's just hard
there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot that has changed. A lot of things. Let me just get through another story here, and we'll talk more about it. Another register story, Orange County Register. But what they'll have... all these stories at our show notes for the current events on the sweepspot.com. So you can read up on the whole thing if you want. But it does say what will replace Disneyland's annual pass program. And normally I wouldn't include speculative stories because there's just so many of them, and I think it's kind of pointless to include them. But this one I did, and as Brady McDonald points out, Disneyland's new membership program, which is already in development, will deliver choice, flexibility, and value, according to Potrock, who's the Disneyland president. Who's I don't think he's ever been president with the park open though. But anyway, choice, flexibility, and value. And I'm thinking, well, the old program didn't. But I guess they're saying the new program will still deliver those. Past and potential pass holders will be surveyed about what Disneyland new membership program should look like. And if I was answering that survey, I would say make it free with lots of benefits. I don't think they'll do that, but we've thought about this a lot because we had some time. The news broke, kind of early in our 2-week cycle here. So it's big news, so many annual pass holders, but a lot of stuff has changed. I mean, think about if you were making monthly payments and those stopped, right? Because they got halted because you're not able to go in there. Well, a lot of people, their employment circumstances have changed, and they might not be able to make those monthly payments when they resume. Plus Disney. There's a lot of people who can't use their pass anymore because they're even if the park reopened, they're not going to feel safe and comfortable going. So there's a lot of things that have changed, and I really don't think they had any other option but to just reset the entire thing. Hit the reset button, give everybody who's still got money, who's do a refund, just refund it instead of saying we're going to wait until the parks reopen and extend your pass out. It's just there's a lot of factors here. Now, a lot of people point out that Disney probably wanted to overhaul the program before all these lockdowns, right? But this provides a convenient excuse. But really, I mean, they don't know when it's going to reopen for sure. And then even when it does reopen, it's going to have limited availability compared to what it had a year ago. The park capacity is not going to be what it was a year ago. It's going to be severely restricted from what it was a year ago. So how can you have an annual pass holder program? I mean, think about the top of the line passes, the ones that say, they're good on any day of the year or, any day of the year except for, these last 2 weeks of the year or whatever. Well, they can't, what if you've got those passes and Disney says, sorry, we're booked up for the day. If that happens a bunch of times, you're going to say, look, I paid for the privilege of being able to come any day of the year, and you keep telling me I can't come. So what, I mean, there's a lot of factors involved in all of that. What if you don't want to follow the new rules? Because there's going to be new rules. Right. And you're like, well, wait a minute. When I bought the pass, the rules were way different, and why, I don't want to follow those new rules. Well, see what I mean? It's just much easier for Disney just to refund everything and reset it. And now, I mean, remember what existed before annual passes. Before annual passes, because there haven't been annual passes since Disneyland opened. No. It was created because of the switchover from the A through E coupon system, the ticket books, as people called them, to the, unlimited, it was called the unlimited passport, where you just pay the one price to get in the park, and that was it. There were a lot of people who would come in for, they'd come in to see the music or to do the dancing, see the, at the swing dancing at Carnation Plaza Gardens, or watch the fireworks, or watch the parade, or just to hang out. Maybe grab a bite. So what those people would do back in the day is they might just pay there was the small admission fee, right? That was. You could do that if you were coming to the park every week or a couple times a week or every 2 weeks or whatever. You would just pay the small admission fee, and and if you got, if you said, "Oh, gee, I want to go on an attraction," maybe you'd buy some tickets, some coupons. But all those people were like, "Well, what do we do now that it costs, whatever it was in the teens, I believe. I think it was less than $20 a head. But back then, that was considered a lot of, you're doing that every week. It's pretty expensive. And so they created the annual pass program, here for $100 or whatever. It was less, I think, when it first started. You can come in and you can come in every day, and it wasn't really publicized. But now, you have, if you really do have 1 million pass holders, that's, and then it's a question of money because, Disney likes that steady money coming in for all those passes, right?
Oh yeah.
But if you're going and you're crowding out some guest who's coming maybe once in a lifetime, when you look at per visit spending, the people who spend the most are going to be international visitors. They're coming because they usually stay in a hotel.
Out of state.
They're buying all these meals, buying all these souvenirs, whatever. Annual pass holders usually spend very little per visit. I mean, now some have their favorite snacks or whatever, but there were cheapskates like me who would go in for a few hours, and try not to spend anything. I know a lot. Now, granted, over the course of a year, the annual pass holder is probably spending more than the one-time visitor. But it's per visit. If you're crowding things out, you get these international visitors, and what do? They go home and they go, "I couldn't do anything because it was just so crowded."
Yeah.
And so Disney's got to consider all that. So basically, what resetting it will allow them to do is to say, yes, there will be a program. There will be a program for people who are frequent visitors. And, I think what they're going to make you do, though, is buy visits up front, no more of these monthly things. And the more you buy up front, the cheaper per thing, like maybe points or whatever, credits. You call them wishes. I think they're going to call them wishes. Buy your wishes up front. And, Saturdays in the summer cost more wishes to visit than a Tuesday in February or whatever. That's what it's going to be. But they're going to make you. You're probably going to have reservations, and you're going to understand that availability is limited. Those are the key things. But Disney for sure will offer something. It'll probably be tied into a phone app, so they can track everything and see how successful the program is and getting you to spend money and all of that. So. But yeah, I'm sure they'll have something. They'll have some sort of frequent visitor program.
I think that they when they put in the Flex, was it called the Flex? Yeah.
Yeah,
the Flex Pass.
Flex Passport. Yeah.
That had only been around for a year or so before.
That's what it seemed like. Yeah.
Before this all happened, but I think that was sort of a test because, and for someone like me. Because I was considering getting that was because we have to plan our trips out for a local person. So I've kind of lived on both sides. I had a pass when I lived locally, and then now I was considering one and looked at the benefits of it, and we have to plan it out obviously. And even if it's up like, hey, next weekend let's go, we still have to plan. I mean, a week in advance. We can't just go, hey, let's go right now. But for those kind of people, like people in Arizona, Utah that live close enough, like we do, we're 6 hours away. It was actually really good, because we already, and so you just made that reservation, and I don't remember the specifics on how many and all that, but and how far out. But I think they're gonna go in that route a little bit, because I think that then they can plan for, and you and I already talked about this, they can plan for staffing and food and everything ahead of time, pretty much.
Right.
And have a better idea, because sometimes they don't know how many. I mean, they kind of have an idea after doing it so many years, but who knows? You know, sometimes all of a sudden a ton of pass holders could show up on a Friday night, you know. And then they have to ask people to extend, or, you know, overtime or whatever it is. So this way they can kind of plan ahead better too.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be about, it's going to help with planning, and it's going. I mean, because think about it. What happens if they reopen, and they have tens or hundreds of thousands of people with passes? You know, they missed the place, and they all want to come right away, and they can't accommodate them. You know,
they can't use their passes.
Yeah. And so they're saying, oh, you know, I paid for this pass. Well, Disney's preempting that. They're like, nope, we refunded your money.
Yep.
So,
I don't think the pass I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'll be a pass program fairly sooner, but I kind of don't see a pass program going into effect until at least another year. But that's just my thoughts. I don't know.
I also wonder how many of the credit cards people were using for the payments have expired over the course of the last year.
True,
you know, and they so there's all that too. You need to upgrade your credit card. You know, it's okay,
or moved or whatever. Yeah. It's
complicated, but I'm sure they'll come up with something.
Yeah,
you know, they will come up with something.
They like the pass holders.
They do. They like that. Because they do, you know, they do spend some money. You know, maybe they're not spending money the same way as the international tourist who's there once in a lifetime or whatever, but they do spend money. So, yeah.
Keep them on their toes, too.
Yes, that's right. Well, let's talk about some of the new offerings that are going to be there when and if they ever reopen. Watch Spider-Man star Tom Holland film pre-show and demo gameplay for Avengers Campus Ride. And this again was in the Orange County Register, and there's actually a video. So if you click through, you can take a look at the video. It says, in the latest video, Holland takes a tour of Walt Disney Imagineering's secretive warehouse where Web Slinger was developed, films a series of pre-show scenes for the attraction, and plays the ride's interactive game with some Imagineers. Holland, who plays Spider-Man in a series of Marvel films, appears as Peter Parker in the green screen pre-show introduction shown in the new video. A scale model of the Web Slinger's ride vehicle sits on a table next to the Spidey star during the green screen scenes. Dressed in a web sweatshirt, that's W-E-B, and T-shirt, Holland explains the attraction's backstory and demonstrates how to sling webs on the ride using hand gestures. Notice it says hand gestures, not finger gestures, okay? The new Web Slinger attraction uses gesture recognition technology to track the body and eye movements of riders as they sling virtual webs from their wrists at Escape Spider-Bots. Holland dons 3D glasses while on the Web Slinger's ride, first with a trio of Imagineers and then with a pair of actors. The eyewear appears to be similar to the Dolby Digital 3D glasses used on Star Tours. Avengers Campus appears to be nearly complete based on aerial photos of the 6-acre themed land, with work continuing at a steady rate during DCA's coronavirus closure. Ding, 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 ding. The first phase of the new land will open. This is really optimistic language. Listen to this paragraph. The first phase of the new land will open with the Spider-Man Dark Ride, as well as a Doctor Strange special effects show, Ant-Man and the Wasp restaurant, and Marvel character meet and greets, and rooftop shows. A second phase will open at an unannounced date with an Avengers e-ticket attraction.
Cool.
Will it though? I mean, remember what I've said already on the show. You can't count on this might be the only phase. You can't count on anything happening that's not already under construction. So, I mean, this was supposed to be done for last summer.
Yeah.
The construction got interrupted and, but anyway, if you don't have access to the register's story because you only get a certain number of stories for free, you can see the video at the Disney Parks blog. We also have that link because the Disney Parks blog covered it. Here's another interesting tidbit. Downtown Disney turns Rainforest Cafe into Star Wars shop. Is a cantina next? Brady McDonald writes in the Register that Disneyland's temporary plan to set aside its commitment to immersive storytelling experiences just became more permanent as once exclusive merchandise only available in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge will now be sold at the former Rainforest Cafe at Downtown Disney. The Star Wars Trading Post pop-up shop at Downtown Disney will be moving from its temporary location in the Wonderground Gallery to its new, more permanent home in the former Rainforest-themed restaurant. An opening date for the relocated Star Wars Trading Post has not been announced. Walt Disney Imagineering will transform the former Rainforest Cafe gift shop into a Star Wars-themed shop as a hidden jungle resistance space with Rey's speeder parked at the entrance. The west end of downtown Disney has been a bit of a ghost town since Disney abandoned plans to build a 4-star hotel on the site of the Rainforest Cafe, ESPN Zone, AMC Theater, Earl of Sandwich, and Starbucks. The sandwich and coffee shops returned after closing in 2018, but the Rainforest-themed restaurant and 12-screen theater complex have remained empty ever since. The ESPN Sports Bar has been repurposed for a number of Disney pop-up events and shops. Disney once boasted that the merchandise sold in Galaxy's Edge would be exclusively available in the Star Wars land. But the extended COVID-19 closure of Disneyland has changed everything. Yep. Now, why don't, they're just going to move, little by little, they should just move everything to downtown Disney, right? Just like how, little by little they can open up California Adventure, right?
Yeah.
They should just move as like Blue Bayou should be down there. Any of the popular shops, you can move the Disney Gallery, there. You can you can just keep moving stuff out there until you've pretty much got everything out there. And say, look, we haven't reopened the park yet, but we've got all these offerings, right?
Yeah, the food thing's killing them right now, though. I mean, you got to have the food open again. I don't.
Right.
I mean, that's a whole other discussion, but that I don't want to get into. But they need to have that open. I don't understand why not. But they need to do that. So.
Yeah, it's
that's the next step at least.
And Laughing Place also covered this story, by the way, so you can click through and see that. Let's see now.
What else do you have?
Oh, Downtown Disney turns 20. Take a look at how it's changed.
Yes, it has.
So the Register points out that after a 4-month coronavirus closure, ding, 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 Downtown Disney reopened in July in anticipation of Disneyland returning later in the month. But, of course, that didn't happen. The 20-acre mall debuted in 2001 with 300,000 square feet of retail, dining, and entertainment venues that served as a shoppertainment connection between Disney's 2 Anaheim theme parks and the resort's hotels. The mall boasted a mix of Art Deco, Craftsman, and Prairie architectural styles that reflected the California postcard theme of the new theme park that debuted in February of 2001. across from Disneyland. The original Disney businesses still operating today include the original downtown Disney businesses still operating today include World of Disney, Lego Store, Sephora, Naples Ristorante, La Brea Bakery, Catal Restaurant, Uva Bar and Cafe, Ralph Brennan's Jazz Kitchen, Ralph Brennan's Jazz Kitchen Express, Wetzel's Pretzels, and Marceline's Confectionery. It's surprising that there's
original. Was that?
Apparently, maybe they made a mistake, but it's amazing how much is still there, considering how much has changed. I mean, the story also goes into how much has changed. It's a lot has changed. I miss Compass Books.
Yeah. I bet they would have had our books there. If
they would have had our books for sure. They had like the best selection of Disney books, and they probably would have carried ours too. Even though, never. That, in fact, Compass Books is where I first saw my wife in person. After I had mailed away from her, I'd mailed the Russian Federation and said, "Could you send?" No, she's an American girl. But yeah, so it's just not the same to say, "Oh, I met her." The first time I saw her was at Earl of Sandwich, but no, it was Compass Books. Anyway,
that it was.
Those are the current events, and if you are hankering for your next Disney getaway vacation, you need to contact concierge.com, concierge.com. Concierge, they're their magical vacation planners. They are our travel planning partners. And here's how it works, folks. It doesn't cost you any more to use Concierge to plan your vacation. All it does is take a lot of stress off of your shoulders. And they're up to date on everything that's going on as far as reopenings and new procedures. Walt Disney World is calling, folks, and eventually the Disney Cruise Line will be back, and Alani in Hawaii is back, and eventually Cruise Line and Adventures by Disney will be back, but Walt Disney World is back. So give them a look. Concierge.com. Book your next getaway vacation with them. All they focus on is Disney, okay? They specialize in that. Tell them that the Sweep Spot sent you, and when you book with them, you'll get a nice little surprise. And thank you to Concierge.
Great. Thanks a lot, Ken.
Disneyland 61. Disneyland 61. Always building something new sights to see, new things to do at Disneyland 61. Disneyland 61. Growing bigger every day, growing better in every way. It's Disneyland 61.
Okay, up next, we're going to welcome back one of our favorite guests to the show, and someone that is a fan favorite to our show too, and that is Jim Korkis. Jim, welcome back.
Well, thank you very much, and this is one of my favorite podcasts. As we were talking off mic, I'm always excited to be on this show because I especially love talking about Disneyland during the years that Walt was alive, because you can always see his hand in the things that were being done, and it just always makes me smile, because it must have made him so happy to be, constantly, reshaping the park. And I think it's important for us to talk about Disneyland and Disneyland memories, because since Disneyland has been closed, for so long, I think there's a lot of us who are sort of mourning Disneyland and mourning not being able to go and get our little happiest place on earth, experience.
Agreed. And Jim is also, I should have mentioned in the beginning, is also an author of many, many books on Disney itself. The man behind the Vault of Walt book series and many more. We'll talk about those as the show progresses. But just wanted to get that out of the way, just so new listeners are wondering who this Jim guy is. What does he know?
Well, I thank you very much because that's how I earn my living these days. Because I can't give presentations, I can't give tours, I can't go to conventions. So I hope people will go to Amazon.com and just type in Jim Korkis and see what pops up, because if you want more books, you have to vote with your wallet. If you want another edition of Vault of Walt, you have to at least buy one of the ones that are already out there, so that I go, oh, somebody out there wants this. So thank you very much for the plug before we get into the show. Thanks.
So on this episode, we're going to talk about the year 1961, and I have a few little facts about that year as far as prices. The parking was 25 cents. Yeah.
What if there was a national coin shortage? If there was a national coin shortage.
Well, again, we were talking about this off mic, but Walt with parking, Walt wanted just enough money that it would cover the maintenance of the area and the price of the cast members who were operating the area. He didn't want to grab people by the ankles and turn them upside down and shake them to see, the gag for Disneyland in 1961 is the reason it's a Magic Kingdom is it's magic if you have any money left in your pocket after you leave the park.
Make it disappear. So they had different tickets as far as the ticket books back then. Everyone, we've spoken of those many times before. Mm-hmm. For the adult, the 10 ticket book, it was $3.50. So just to give you an idea. Mm-hmm. So that was with 10 tickets, right? And that was before the e-ticket. Or no, the e-ticket was there. That's right.
No, e-ticket had come out. The first ones in 1959. So
right.
They were still riding high on that in 61.
Right. Yeah. So not, so that kind of sets the stage for prices. Kind of give an idea about that. But I want to start on Main Street because I had something that I wanted to mention that you can elaborate on it a little more. Is the Babes in Toyland exhibit opened December 17th, 1961 in the Opera House on Main Street. And was that just an exhibit like for movie props? Or?
Yes. You don't realize how innovative that was. Mm-hmm. Basically, Babes in Toyland, terrible movie, and did terrible at the box office. But Walt was so great at promotion that he figured if he had, an exhibit in the Opera House, people would go in there and they would see this and they would go get excited to see the movie. Now, why this was so innovative, this was the very first time, to the best of my knowledge and the best of my research, where average people could go in and see sets and props and costumes from a movie. Today we take all of that for granted, but this was a movie that was just being released, and you could go in there and you would see these things, and my gosh, making movies was just so magical and unknown that people didn't know, how do you go about making these things, and to see these actual sets in there and be able to wander through and touch them too. Because it wasn't like, oh yes, well this is gold. We should put up plexiglass around it. It was like, this is a movie set and we've already used it. Yeah. If people want to touch it, yeah, go ahead. And then of course, related to that is this is the year '61 where you have the Christmas parade with the giant wooden toy soldiers and the silly marching reindeer that was called the Parade of Toys because it was to theme in with the toys in the movie. And so you had Bill Justice and Exitencio, who built the toys for the film, were tasked with Walt saying, look, blow them up, to life size, and we're going to put them, in the parade, which Bill Justice told me. For Walt, it was like, yeah, just go do it. But we had made these toy soldiers about 12 inches tall, and now we had to design costumes that were 6 foot tall, and we had to design costumes that people could actually be in, and play a trumpet and play a drum and all of that. But the costumes still had to look, like the toys, And there were other things like they had toy soldiers on two-dimensional ones on pop-up that would pop up and down, riding wooden rocking horses that were pulled along the parade route, and others that were wearing baskets around their waist attached to hot air balloons, and basically. Bill, and I remember this quote that Bill said. He said, "It was a really bad movie inspired a good parade," and so some of those things from that parade were so popular that they continued, for many years. And for those of us Disney fans who would like to get a glimpse of that 1961 Christmas parade was filmed, and it aired as an episode on the weekly Disney TV show. So try and track down on YouTube or whatever. And God bless YouTube. Holiday Time at Disneyland, and so you'll see most of the parade. You'll also see how cheesy some of the parade was, and later it was called something like Christmas Fantasy or whatever. But that first year it was called the Parade of Toys, and again, the whole point of that parade was to encourage people to go into the Opera House and see the exhibit. And then once you did that, my gosh, you were going to go buy a ticket to see Babes in Toyland. Good for you. And also that Christmas, as you know, that was the very first year for the 20-foot tall Christmas star to be added to the top of the Matterhorn. That was the first year for that, and originally that not only illuminated at night, but it spun. Over the years, that didn't happen anymore, but that first year it did. So, gosh, thanks for asking me about that. That's such a fun thing and a part of Disney history there.
Well, you had mentioned the Babes in Toyland was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Was that had some props in it, right? But not sets. Is that?
No. Well, it had some props, but they were sometimes behind things, behind glass, and all of that.
More like a museum.
Yeah, more like a museum display. Whereas this is the one where you could actually, walk through the house or type thing.
I see. I see. Uh-huh.
And you had the scary trees from the forest and all that. So yes, 20,000 Leagues had some props. Some props actually had to be recreated for that exhibit. But for instance, the giant squid that was behind glass. Some of the diving suits were behind rope stanchions. So I guess you could be, naughty and reach across, but the whole point was, we're putting this aside. You can't actually go up and touch this. You can't actually go and interact with this.
Well, I was doing my research. We talked about the different lands and stuff, and I was looking at Adventureland, and I thought there was only now correct me if I'm wrong, but there was only the Jungle Cruise over there, because I thought the shooting gallery was there, and it wasn't there then, and so it's just Jungle Cruise. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and the shooting gallery was actually connected to the shooting gallery in Frontierland. There was a right behind the Adventureland shooting gallery. There was this hallway for storage and things like that, and it connected to the Frontierland one. Yeah, and the Adventureland one, you shot at not only jungle animals but natives, which is very unpolitically correct these days, and all of that. And again, they were using the metal pellets, so that was, smashing into things, and they would have to go and repaint every night, and they were using up to 40,000 gallons of paint a year just to repaint. And of course, the people who repainted were not as precise as the original Disney artists, so they would just slap on the paint, and so all sorts of detail was missed and all of that. But yes, for many years, by golly, you went to Adventureland, Jungle Cruise, that was it.
Yeah. But Frontierland had a lot of quite different Frontierland than obviously with some with the chicken plantation and Don DeFore's
but remember here in 1961, this is the year that Don DeFore's Silver Banjo Barbecue restaurant closed.
Right.
And that was because of health issues. Is that the health department came in and found that it didn't have, proper storage outside and not enough room for the kitchen and all that. And so instead of spending the money of fixing that up and adding to that, just that's it. It's gone. And also in '61 is when Holidayland it closed. Actually, the same month that Don DeFore's Silver Banjo restaurant closed. So did Holidayland. And that's the thing is that Disneyland was constantly in this state of flux. Of changing, and as I said, I can just see Walt going in there, and let's add this, let's change it, because in 1961, Anaheim was the fastest growing city in the United States, and Orange County was the fastest growing county in the nation, and all of that was thanks to Disneyland. And the Disneyland Hotel was the largest hotel in Orange County, but when we say the largest hotel in Orange County, it only had 300 some rooms, and we were talking about how amazing it is, things being added and changed at Disneyland in '61. We don't really realize this is the year that Walt is starting preparation for the attractions for the 1964 World's Fair. It didn't just take a year to make those attractions. He's starting in 1961 here with the planning and all this. 61 is the year that he starts planning Mary Poppins. You know, he's got all of these things on the plate, and so he could easily have ignored Disneyland because, you know, we talked about this, that the first 3 e-ticket attractions appeared in 1959, and, you know, so that's only, you know, a couple of years, and so not everyone had come. It's not like today that it's like, oh, they're opening this new attraction, we're going to be there on opening day. We have to be there that first week. We have to, you know. In those days, it was like, wow, that's a new attraction. We'll have to plan on when going to Disneyland and seeing that sometime. So he could have let that slide, but he didn't. You know, the July issue of the Disneylander, which was that magazine that was given to cast members, pointed out that during the summer season, guests were pouring through the main gate of Disneyland at the average of 33 people every minute. 33 people every minute. But, you know, as we discussed off mic, too, about the annual pass holders and all of that, during the rest of the year, you know, when kids went back to school, attendance dropped, you know. So except for summer and holidays and sometimes weekends, you know, Disneyland was not yet considered a year-round attraction. And so to help rectify that situation, Disneyland became involved in establishing the Anaheim Visitor and Convention Bureau to help promote all of Anaheim as a major tourist destination. That's why Walt wanted the Disneyland Hotel, is he didn't want people just to come to the park for a couple of hours, you know, and then try to leave at 5 o'clock to beat the traffic home. He wanted people to have an extended stay. Now Disney had already started publishing that quarterly Vacation Land magazine, and some of the listeners may have copies of that in their collection, and that was given away free in local hotels to promote all the entertainment venues, including Knott's Berry Farm, you know. So again, Walt's philosophy was, you're not just coming to see Disneyland. You know, if you come to Disneyland, there are other things you can visit as well, so you can stay a little longer and then maybe come back to Disneyland. But on April 19th, Disneyland welcomed its 25th million guests. Dr. Glenn C. Franklin, you know, and I don't know anything about him other than he's the 25th million guest. I do know that Vice President Richard Nixon visited on September 2nd with his daughter Tricia, and President Dwight Eisenhower and his wife Mamie were guests at the park December 26th. And when I was researching Leslie Nielsen and the series he did for the Disney Weekly TV show Swamp Fox, at the time he was filming that in 1961, he visited the park, and there's publicity photos of him posing with the submarines and all of that. So this was a very popular location, you know, for celebrities and dignitaries, and local events still took place, like the Western Regional Pancake Races. That took place in February, and you had a kids' amateur dog show in Holidayland in March, and date nights on Fridays and Saturdays in June, July, and August, you know, again to increase attendance there. But there is one event, and that's why listeners to this podcast listen to this podcast, because you get information you can't find anywhere else. You go and you look at, you know, this day in Disneyland history, or, you know, the chronology of Disneyland and all of this. Here's an item that usually gets missed. June 17th, Tomorrowland, there's a 16-piece Navy band playing and there's television cameras, and there's photographers for a 17-year-old boy named Timothy Townsend, because he is the 5 millionth guest to ride the submarine voyage. And so there's a full ceremony. Yeah, you won't find this anywhere else. I really had to dig for this, but I love doing that because I love sharing those things on your podcast, because now people can hear it, now people can share it, and now people can try and, look up local newspapers and find out more information than I could. But officiating the ceremony was Joe Fowler. And in the newspapers, he was described as the Admiral of the Magic Kingdom's Navy. And he read a letter from Walt Disney and presented Townsend with a Disneyland submarine pin. And I wonder what that looked like. And a cap, and made him an honorary captain of the Disneyland submarine fleet. So I maybe one of your listeners here is the son or the grandson or nephew or whatever, and will phone in and give us some more information. I would like to know what the submarine pin looked like, but you never know. And, my gosh, something happened that most people have the entirely wrong idea about it, because most people get their information from the movies. They don't get it from real life. P.L. Travers visits Disneyland on Easter Sunday. Now, most of us have seen the movie Saving Mr. Banks. I like the movie. I've written a whole column about how it is entirely wrong. but again, most movie biographies, what they do is they change things, or they combine characters or whatever, to make it more dramatic. Because again, it's a movie. You want something to happen. You want it to be consistent. You want to be able to connect the dots and all that. Okay. Well, Walt did intend to take her to Disneyland because he's still trying to, romance her to give him the rights to Mary Poppins. But in a letter dated March 31st, 1961, Walt wrote to her and said, "I'm sorry I can't be on hand to greet you on your arrival in Los Angeles, but I've been fighting a cold for some time and have been spending as much time as possible in the dry desert air hoping to shake it. It was my thought that you might like to go to Disneyland on Sunday," and that's Easter Sunday. "Mr. Dover will take you down there, perhaps going down to the park in time for lunch and spending the afternoon there. He will discuss the details with you." Now, Bill Dover was a story man at the studio, and he was basically assigned to babysit Travers during her trip to Los Angeles, so chauffeur her wherever she wants to go, all of that. Walt gave them full access to his apartment above the firehouse. He gave them use of his little personal electric car and the assistance of a guest relations hostess. Now, despite later claims by Travers that she was not pleased with her one and only time at Disneyland, according to Dover's trip notes, she seemed to have enjoyed the experience, but I guess she just didn't want people to know she enjoyed being at Disneyland, because that was, that was beneath her, yes. And, in the movie, of course, we have Walt there, and Walt showing her. Never happened. Never happened. He did show Julie Andrews, Mary Poppins, around the park, and her family, and took them in the little electric car and all that. But no, that was and Travers could have gone back to Disneyland any time during her trip. She had no interest in doing that. And 1961, another first. Thursday, June 15th, the very first all-night grad night party. It brought in 8,500 young guests from 28 different Los Angeles area schools for the biggest high school graduation party ever held in the United States. So the students were transported to the park on buses. They met at their schools and then boarded the buses, and the buses then drove to Disneyland. They were accompanied by chaperones from their schools. Sometimes those were teachers, sometimes those were parents. The party lasted from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. and included admission to Disneyland, which was a big deal, free admission to all the rides, so they could go and ride whatever rides they wanted as many times as they wanted. And, you know, you talked about the ticket book. In the old days, you know, you had to have a ticket to get on a ride, and that could get pricey. All the entertainment, they had, you know, music groups, bands, singers, and all that around the park. However, food and the shooting galleries were not included in the price, and students were required to meet dress code standards. So for boys, that's a tie and a jacket, you know, and all that. The cost of the ticket, $6.
Whoa.
now, you guys must have worked a grad night or two in your career there at Disneyland, right?
Right. I did.
Well, we worked. We would work the start of it because we had night crew to handle the bulk of it.
Yeah.
So we would handle close, reopen, and then once it was really getting started, we'd be out of there.
Yeah, about 1:30 or 2, we were out of there. Yeah.
So was it wild? Was it?
Yeah, it depended on the school district that was invited that night, because you know they'd have different. Sometimes we'd have out of state, like Arizona, even from there. But
I was doing restrooms one time, right? And a cast member comes into, you know, the park is basically closed, and it's getting closed to reopen for grad night.
Right.
And a cast member comes into the restroom, changes, and he's going to go out for grad night. I'm pretty sure that wasn't kosher, you know.
No, and those were the days before, you know, they did things like wristbands or a lanyard or whatever. So, now were you guys? Did your schools ever go to grad night? Did you ever go to Disneyland grad night as a student?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
and
not
it
mine.
was about
Not
the
mine.
same time.
No, my school went down to San Diego and took a boat trip around the harbor, and then did like a roller rink after that. You know, so yeah.
Yeah, we did Disneyland, and we got there about 10, I think, 10 at night or something like that, and then stayed till 6 in the morning. Like you were saying, that was till 5.
Yeah.
It was about 5 or 6 in the morning.
Well, again, this was so popular that it grew, and actually there were several nights that then, you know, got set aside for different schools for grad night. But here, 61, this is the very first one. Yeah, I went to Herbert Hoover High School in Glendale, California, and yes, we went to Disneyland for grad night, and I remember we also got a free picture taken, you know, and again it was like, my gosh, this is amazing, you know, Disneyland is ours. We can do anything, you know, and it's at night, you know, but yeah, but again. Grad night's another thing to try and generate, you know, more revenue, more attendance, and yeah. Apparently, no grad night celebrations this last year at Disneyland. No,
or next this year.
And none this year either. They canceled it already. So Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thing,
Well,
but they've
and
changed
again,
it.
it's hard to know what to cancel, right?
Yeah. But
when are we all?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No. When are we all going to be well? When are we all going to be normal again?
Well, it'll be a different normal, but they with California Adventure, the whole grad night thing has changed somewhat. I think they start out at California Adventure, or don't they stay at California Adventure now, or something like that?
Yeah, it's like a day thing, and then it moves to the night at Disneyland. I think they can do like California Adventure in the day, and then something like that.
A lot of things seems to have shifted over to California Adventure. Like the Halloween party and all of that. And again, that's to increase revenue at California Adventure. You don't have to promote Disneyland anymore. Everybody wants to go to Disneyland. Let's talk about some fun things that were added to the park in '61 as well. Okay.
I think I know it. I think I know one. I'll let you go ahead though.
Okay. I think it's probably the one you're thinking of. It's a very quiet place that some people even today don't even know it exists, even with all these websites and guidebooks and all of that, or if they know it exists, it never go there to visit it. But I find it just really charming, and that is the Snow White Grotto on the side of Sleeping Beauty Castle. And there's some wonderful stories about it, but '61 is when that first opened. And Imagineer John Hench told the story in his book Designing Disney that came out in 2003. And basically the way he told the story is that Walt got this unexpected gift of statues of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs carved in pure white marble. And they arrived in wooden cases, crates from Italy with no return address, so no idea who sent them. And Walt called Hench down to look at them, and he told him, I want this someplace in Disneyland. And Hench said, well, look, there's a problem here. The sculptor has carved Snow White, so she's basically the same size as the dwarfs. And he said, Walt always just said, well, just figure it out. And so Hench's solution was to put the Snow White figure at the top of a cascading waterfall next to an undersized deer and a bird, and the dwarfs much lower and closer to the guests. So it created this forced perspective situation where Snow White seemed, in the right proportion. And Hench was inspired by a fountain he saw in a small town in the north of France. That's where he came up with the design for that. And so on April 9th, 1961, Walt dedicated the Snow White Grotto, and the illusion that Hench created, was enjoyed for decades by guests. And the wishing well was put there. That was Walt's idea, so that coins could easily be collected and donated to local children's charities, rather than having park guests tossing the coins into the castle moat and them having to clean it out, all the time, to do that. Now, one persistent addition to this story that has come over the years were that the statues were based on the Italian sculptor seeing a set of hand soaps, gift soaps of the characters that was only released in Europe. And in that set, of course, Snow White was about the same size as the dwarfs, so could fit in the same box, in the different slots. However, again, another Disneyland urban legend, and you got to be careful, even when you listen to Imagineers, even an Imagineer like John Hench, because after Hench's death, paperwork was discovered that the sculptures were actually commissioned by Walt himself. There was a Milan-based sculptor, Leonida Parma, and he fashioned them from marble. And with the paperwork, he had sent a message that there had been a mistake in the measurements due to a mistake in the translation. So each of the dwarfs were 31 inches tall, and that was fine, but Snow White was only 39 inches tall. And so Parma said, yes, I can resculpt Snow White to the proper proportion, but that would be $2,000. However, it was only $611 to carve those two small animals next to Snow White. So that's how that happened. And then when Tokyo Disneyland wanted a duplicate of Snow White's grotto, the sculptures were removed from Disneyland, and they were copied and made in fiberglass. But it was then seen that they had suffered, in being out in the weather over the years. So they were warehoused, and duplicates took their place in the park, and duplicates were sent to Tokyo, and because Tokyo wanted the exact same figures with the small Snow White in the exact same proportion. Now Disney, being Disney, forgot they had the original stored away. But during some moving, the Snow White figure was dropped and seriously damaged. Okay, the little princess did get repaired, and the other figures were rescued, and all of them are now safely housed at Imagineering in California. And some guests on the Adventures by Disney Backstage Magic Tour get to get a glimpse of these original Disneyland treasures. And again, you may have some listeners who will phone in and say, yes, I went on that tour, and I heard Imagineer Valerie Edwards tell that story. So Corcus is right. But again, what a nice little touch, and something that we don't often see at Disneyland, anymore. There's a whole new approach to Imagineering, but Walt's approach was, yes, something as little as this. Let's make this as wonderful and as interesting as possible. And if all the guests don't see it, that's fine. But the guests who do see it, they'll really enjoy it. And the Wishing Well was rehabbed in '83. When they were redoing Fantasyland, and they went and they got Adriana Castellani, who was the original voice of Snow White in the movie in 1939, and they brought her in, and they recorded her voice. I'm wishing, but again, this has been 40 some years, right? And or more, and so she just didn't seem to be able to hit some of the high notes, and she realized that, and so they were going to have to call in someone else, and they do have backup voices to do those. And she said, please, just give me one more shot. And she looked up to the sky. I talked to the recording artist, the recording technician who was there, and said she looked up to the sky and she said, please, Mr. Disney, help me. And she went back and she recorded. She hit the high notes perfectly. And that's the voice that you hear there in the Wishing Well echoing away. And Disney likes to tell people that if you toss in a coin there, a wish does come true. It just may not be your wish. It may be a wish for a kid in difficulty, a handicapped kid, for all of that. And so again, one of my favorite places there at Disneyland. And if you weren't thinking of Snow White's Grotto, I'll bet you were thinking of the flying saucers. And my gosh, that's one of those attractions that people wish they had ridden. And I actually got a chance to ride on one of those in 1965, where I got to bump into both of my brothers. And the flying saucers, I think, is the only Disney attraction that it has only one seat for a guest. I may be wrong about that, and if I am, your listeners will let me know. But it opened on August 8th, 1961, but that was later than what was announced because there were mechanical issues, But over its what was it, 5-6 years it was there, it provided great fun for over 5 million guests who were fortunate to ride. It was sort of like a bumper car attraction, or something that most people don't remember, but we're in Midwest amusement parks called the Duck Bump. Now, the Duck Bump is where a guest would get in a large inner tube and maneuvered around the pond and could bump into each other. And Walt had grown up seeing that as a kid, and so that's where the initial design came from. There were 64 one-person saucers, and they were designed by Bob Gurr. And Bob Gurr actually has a patent, so he is officially recognized by the U.S. government on the patent as flying saucer inventor. And they would be listed, these circular vehicles, which were like an overturned bowl. They were lifted by pressurized air from valves on the 16,000 square foot metal arena floor, and they could hover slightly. And so if you adjusted your weight, you could move the saucer in certain directions. If you were too heavy, it wouldn't hover or hover enough for you to move it. And if you were too light, you couldn't maneuver enough to move it either. And Gurr described it to me as like a human air hockey rink. And each saucer had a lap belt, like the ones that were on the Autopia. And, by moving, basically the saucer would tip slightly in that direction, decreasing the gap between it and the floor and allowing air to escape in the opposite direction. That moves the craft across the blue-floored arena. And a large boom, and the saucers were divided into two sections of 32, because a large boom would move across the arena and sweep the saucers that were out there over to the side, and while they were being swept to the side, the other 32 saucers were maneuvering out there. So they were constantly loading or unloading and bumping into each other. And hovercraft vehicles were very popular at the time. A German inventor brought one of his versions to the Disney studio to try to sell it to Walt, because once Disneyland opened, everybody was contacting Walt to try and sell them their ideas or their oddities or whatever. And Gurr took a test run on the back lot, and fortunately I know Bob Gurr, and I've interviewed him, and he said it really handled well, but underneath were these high-speed razor-sharp blades, which he felt was not going to be safe for the general public, and that the individual motor might burn out, under the demands of constant use. You have to realize that something that they test, that, yes, this can run 100 times. That's not enough for Disneyland, because they're running hours on end every single day there. And a girl handle added on 2 handles by the seat so guests could grip, but that had no effect on the movement. It was Arrow Development, the ones who had built attractions like the Matterhorn bobsleds, whatever. They developed the arena for 100 horsepower motors supplied 300,000 cubic feet of air per minute pressure underneath the arena. And it was covered with thousands of damper baffles that would open and close to control the airflow. However, when Arrow Development was building this and testing it, they were doing it inside. Okay? And so now it's outside. And nobody had ever built a system like this. So the dynamics of the pneumatic system were pretty much unknown. And so outside, sometimes there would be constant bouncing, and because it was not in an enclosed area, sometimes a vibration, like an echo, would upset the flow of the air and cause the system to drop. Now, the sudden drop in air pressure would create a sound like a sonic boom that you could hear throughout the park, and all of the saucers would immediately drop, so you had to reset the system. So, lack of dependability, limited capacity, and the plans for remodeling all of Tomorrowland, for the new Tomorrowland in '67, this was a good time to get rid of the flying saucers. And Space Mountain is basically in that same area today. But boy, people, I can attest, as a kid, you really had to wait in line, even though there's constant loading and unloading. You had to, and boy, you really had to move to try and adjust that saucer to go, in directions. But boy, it was fun, and people just have such fond memories of it. That's why at California Adventure they tried to recreate that with Luigi's tires, and it still
That's what I was going to say.
More.
Yeah, that was really I mean, I went on it one time, and it was really hard to try to maneuver those. I think, and that was the reason why I think people are just frustrated, so they got rid of it. But
yeah, because the whole point for me was to bump into my brothers, and I couldn't get over there fast enough.
Yeah.
Well, also, everybody wants to fly in a flying saucer. Whoever wanted to fly in a flying tire?
Exactly. And again, if Disney was willing to commit the money, we could have flying saucers today. The technology exists, and, just by how much they learned, from the mistakes that were made, those could be corrected. But again, I don't think Disney will ever create another attraction which will accommodate one guest. They really want attractions that are sponges, that are people eaters, so you can get as many people on and off as possible. That was the excitement about the Small World boats, is you could have one group boarding just as the other group is leaving, and you could have multiple people, But, one of the things that we have out here at Walt Disney World that I love, but my first experience on it was out at Disneyland, was the monorail. And the big news in '61 was the extension of the monorail to the Disneyland Hotel, which, again, really doesn't exist anymore. Up until June of 61, the only ways to get between the Disneyland Hotel and the Disneyland Park were to take the tram or walk across the parking lot or drive your own car. Or if you were a VIP, the Disneyland Hotel had VIP station wagons that would drive you from the hotel right to the entrance of Disneyland. And then there were some that were stationed out there so that if you were a Disneyland Hotel guest, you could, then hop one of those station wagons and take it back. But this was the year the Disney all-wed monorail was extended. The monorail station at the Disneyland Hotel was adjacent to the lobby. Oftentimes I get asked this, we just accept that these things happen. Oh, yes, they took it over to the hotel because that's cool. Yes, it is cool. They did it because Walt was upset. He was upset that no one was taking the monorail as a serious transportation alternative. He had proposed to Las Vegas, believe it or not. Once the monorail opened in 59, he had proposed to Las Vegas a proposal to have the monorail going down its strip corridor to the casinos. And Las Vegas turned him down. And so what Walt hoped is with this extension, he could prove that this is not just an amusement park attraction. This is a legitimate form of transportation. And in addition, he was good friends with Jack Rather, who would cut him all sorts of slack in terms of where do you put this and how much land you can use and all of that. So while most guests entered Disneyland at the Main Street station, Disneyland Hotel guests could arrive by monorail train and entered into Tomorrowland. And the monorail operated at a top speed about 25 miles per hour. It could get, on straightaways, it could get up to 35, 40 miles an hour, but generally 25 miles per hour. It always seems so much faster because it looks like this rocket ship. And the Mark I trains, Monorail Red, Monorail Blue, consisted of 3 cars each. But, boy, this was a popular attraction. So in 61, they introduced the 4-car Mark II. And they introduced an additional train, the yellow train. And so the monorail were now longer at 112 feet, and each train could carry up to 108 guests, since they had that additional car. And at Walt's suggestion, the front cab was changed with an enlarged bubble dome so that guests could sit there and view the scenery, because Walt loved doing that, and so he wanted guests to have that. And the electrical system was upgraded and air conditioning. And the track was basically extended 2.5 miles outside the park. And the new link went over the berm, ran south along Harbor Boulevard to the auto entrance, turned west across the parking lot, and went over West Street to the Disneyland Hotel. And then when it left that location, it returned by passing Holidayland and the park's main entrance, and it actually went over the employee entrance and back into Tomorrowland, where it completed the trip over its original route. It was the first passenger-carrying monorail in America to run adjacent to a major highway, and the first passenger-carrying monorail to cross a street. And a Disneyland survey at the end of 1961 found that 99.6% of the passengers felt that the experience was superior. The cost of the extension was $1.9 million, which, for those of you who are money-oriented, that's roughly $500,000 more than the cost of the original monorail. The construction required more than 108,000 man-hours of labor, 10,760 tons of sand, 66,700 bags of cement, and 702 tons of steel, with over 200 new pylons that were added. And so, of course, no detail too small for Walt. He made sure that Bill Evans put additional plantings of flowers and things like that surrounding the pylons, as well as down the center of West Street. Now, the addition of the monorail, of course, strengthened the Disneyland Hotel's competitive advantage. And during the summer months, the hotel's 306 rooms were operating at 100% capacity every single day.
Wow.
And that again is probably one of the reasons, they built the Monorail Lounge, where you could go and, get a drink and maybe a little snack there. And again, when you left the monorail, you had to get your hand stamped if you wanted to get back on the monorail, or else you had to pay an additional admission thing. Disneyland Hotel was doing so well. It was going to expand all areas, including rooms and restaurants and convention facilities and entertainment. And groundbreaking was done for the 11-story high Sierra Tower that would open the following year in 1962. It was a high-rise tower that at the time would be Orange County's tallest building at 118 feet. It's gone through several name changes. I think it's Dreams Tower now. The other thing that happened at the Disneyland Hotel in 1961 is they opened a new 40-acre golf complex consisting of an 18-hole course. They also had a 250-yard driving range, 50 tees, and a miniature golf course named the Magic Kingdom Golf Course, where each hole was themed to a different Disneyland attraction. So those of you who are big Disneyland hotels, once upon a time, there was a mini golf course, and each of the holes were themed to a Disneyland attraction. It was illuminated for night playing. Disney Studios art director Al Applegate was the construction supervisor, and Disney personnel like Andy Anderson and Larry Smith and Bud Washoe. Boy, that guy deserves some more recognition. They were all involved with that. Hole 1 was a replica of the Main Street train station. Hole 3, of course, was Sleeping Beauty Castle with a drawbridge and a courtyard. Hole 5 was the Matterhorn Mountain. And you had 3 pathways to do the different bobsleds, to come out on the other side and different things. Other holes were themed to the TWA Moonliner. An octopus lair from the submarine voyage was there. The Frontierland Painted Desert was a hole. The Frontierland Fort. Skull Rock from Fantasyland. Tom Sawyer's Island. Monstro the Whale. Those of you listening to this podcast are now going, I've got to go on Google and Magic Kingdom Golf Course, Disneyland Hotel. I want to see pictures of this. And it was usually about a par of 2 or 3 for each hole there. The final hole was entitled Mickey's Lagoon, and it had this large fountain with a sculptor, full figure of Mickey Mouse holding a golf club. And Mickey's figure was like the other statues on the course that were originally all white because he wanted to suggest Greek or Roman statuary. But at multiple requests from the guests, hotel guests, they were eventually painted. So, I sure would have loved to have had that out here rather than the Fantasia Golf Course or the even the one out by Blizzard Beach. How neat would that be to walk around your own miniature Disneyland, and the art direction is all done by Disney staff. You know, holy cow!
And it's important to point out that that the hotel is not Disney owned at this time. It wouldn't be Disney owned until the late '80s. So, yeah.
Right. It's owned by Jack Rather, who was an entrepreneur. He owned properties like the Lone Ranger and Lassie. He and his wife were really good friends with Walt and Lily. And so when Disneyland opened, Walt had a real problem because, again, he wanted this more than an amusement place you went for a couple of hours. He wanted people to stay there, so he realized you need to have some place where people can stay. You need to have a hotel because there's not, a lot of hotels and motels in the Anaheim area because, again, in those days, that was out in the boondocks. So he made arrangements with Rather, and Walt had actually bought a lot of land around Disneyland, and so he leased that land right across from the park because Rather wanted to build it at the entrance to Disneyland, and Walt said, no, you need to build it when people are leaving. That's when they'll want to go and stay there. And so he leased the land to Rather, 99-year lease, okay? Leased the land to Rather for $2,000 a year. And he leased the rights to the name Disney for that hotel and any other hotel Rather would want to build in Southern California for $25,000 a year. 99-year lease. And Walt committed to not building a competing Disney hotel in the Southern California area. Wow, right? You can tell how irritated Michael Eisner was when he came on board, and here's a hotel called the Disneyland Hotel, and the Disney company doesn't own it. Doesn't operate it. It can't control any of the quality issues, all of that. And speaking of monorail, Eisner tried to force Rather out by saying that he was going to raise the rent for use of the monorail station, right? And he figured if he raised it high enough, Rather would just sell out the hotel. Well, Rather responded, we're not going to pay for that increased rate, but what we will do is we will block off the station. So now, if you take the monorail and there's no station there, you can't go through and get back into the park. But Eisner finally got what he wanted once Rather passed away. And as part of the deal, one of the things Rather owned was the Queen Mary and the Spruce Goose down in Long Beach. And so when people say, well, why did Disney get involved with that? Well, it's because Eisner wanted the Disneyland Hotel so badly, he bought the Rather company, and those two items came with it. And so then he decided he was going to make that, Well, we could do a whole podcast sometime about Disneyland Hotel and the.
Well, I just wanted to throw in. They've actually it hit the news again just now that the Queen Mary operation has gone bankrupt again. So
yes,
yeah, it's like, we could do a whole nother show on that. Like, what would be different in Long Beach if Disney actually built there? But that's another story.
Yeah, it was going to be Port Disney Sea. And in fact, many of the things that were developed for that proposal then later ended up with Tokyo Disney Sea. But again, you guys are terrible. You asked me the time, and I build you a clock. But let's finish up with one more important thing that was at Disneyland at 61. We'll use this as a wrap-up, okay? The popular weekly Disney television show opened each week, with Tinkerbell. And she flew around and introduced the audiences to the four lands of Disneyland. And she became very associated with the new theme park. And again, the Disney company, at least Roy Disney, was very hesitant to use a lot of Disney characters in the park because he felt, well, if the park fails, this is going to hurt the brand and all that. So in the beginning, they used supporting characters like Tinkerbell and Jiminy Cricket, and there was a lot of park-specific merchandise with Tinkerbell. There was a little keychain flashlight. There was a little bell with a figure of Tinkerbell on the top of it. There was a glow-in-the-dark wand, whatever. But as a result, a lot of guests kept asking cast members, where is Tinkerbell? Well, Disneyland sponsored Disney Night at the Hollywood Bowl on August 1st, 1958. And so that was a lot of, Disney music and things like that. One of the highlights of the evening entertainment was a 1,000-foot glide over the entire audience at the Hollywood Bowl by aerialist Helen Tiny Klein, dressed as Tinkerbell. And Walt was there, and it gave him an idea. And it took him a while, but the very first Tinkerbell to fly at Disneyland in the summer of 1961 was Tiny Klein. She was 70 years old, just about to turn 71. She was a grandmother. She stood 4 feet 10 inches tall. She weighed about 98 pounds because there has to be a certain amount of weight, because if you're too heavy, you go sailing like a rocket down that line. And if you're too light, you don't have enough weight to move that down. Now, she had arrived in America as an immigrant, and she went to a boarding house, boarding school, actually, where young women could learn to be domestic servants or needle workers. And she wasn't going to put up with that. So she became a popular burlesque dancer. And she worked off-Broadway in theater productions. And she caught the attention of a Wild West trick writer. And she married him, but 5 weeks after the wedding, he fell off his horse and died. So here she is stuck in the circus, and so she had to find a job, and she started off being what was called a Roman rider, which meant she stood straight up atop a charging steed in chariot races at the end of the show. And then she eventually became the queen of the aerial iron jaw act. And what that is, often called the slide from life as well, is with your mouth, with your teeth, you grip on to this metal clamp, and then you slide down this line. And the act became her trademark, and she performed it for the in the Ringling Brothers circus. And so at Disneyland, she was suspended 146 feet up in the air, glided down a long wire from the Matterhorn to just behind Sleeping Beauty's castle. Actually, at her catch area was, I think, right behind the Fantasyland Theater. And they had 2 big, burly men with these huge mattresses that she would slam into. And it's like, oh my gosh, she's only 4'10", she's only 98 pounds, but the amount of momentum that she built up, sliding down, bang, would knock over these big burly football player, labor workers. And, most circus high wire acts like that, by the way, are done no more than 50 feet above the ground. So she's 3 times higher. Now, here's a special treat, because I always want to have some special treat so that people who listen to this podcast, then become, the heroes, the Disney experts for their friends and family. And not one of them say, gee, did you turn into the sweep spot and listen to Jim Korkis? No. And I don't care. I just care that the stories are out there, they're shared, and they're shared correctly. But here's a little treat to help wrap this up. I've interviewed a lot of Disney Imagineers and animators, and I'm not bragging about that. I was just incredibly lucky to be at the right place at the right time, and nice enough that these people were generous enough with their time to tell stories. And I would scribble these down, and I love just sharing these with others. This is something that Disney legend Bob Matheson, who was working at the park at the time, told me. And here's a direct quote. And he goes, "The first woman to do it at Disneyland was Tiny Klein, who was a grandmother in her 70s and had worked in the circus doing an iron jaw act. That is where she grabbed this ball with her mouth and twirled and slid down the cable and such. However, since she grabbed the thing with her mouth, she was always looking up, not down. So sometimes when she looked down off the Matterhorn, she froze for a moment, and we had to give her a little push. At the other end were these 2 big guys with mattresses, padding and the like, and even though she was this little tiny thing, she built up so much momentum that she would knock these guys over. Then she had to rush the wardrobe to change and run to catch the last bus leaving for Los Angeles, which was at 10:30 p.m. and at the front of the park. So we would all be there shouting to cheer her along as she ran on these tiny legs to catch the bus. And so I'm always, and I never asked him this, but I'm always thinking, did you have like an electric car or something so you could then take her there so this grandmother didn't have to run to the front of the park? Well, Klein performed for the next 2 summers, but in 1964 she succumbed to cancer, and so the wand and the harness that she wore went to 19-year-old French circus acrobat Mimi Zerbini. Zerbini was also a circus family veteran, but she only performed as Tinkerbell for that 1 summer. In 1965, Judy Kay began a career of more than a decade of flying across the night sky as Disneyland. And for those listeners who are still awake, that's a glimpse of what Disneyland in 1961 was like, and you can certainly thank these 2 gentlemen for giving me the opportunity to share a couple of things that you may not have known, but now you can claim as your own.
Yeah, it was, there was a lot going on, even though there was no Tiki Room, no New Orleans Square.
Tiki Room is going to come in 63, and again, the World's Fair pavilions, which would then start migrating to the park in 66, 67. So, yeah.
Yeah, right. No, it's a small world. I mean, the park was considerably smaller than it is now because it's expanded its borders a lot since then. But Matterhorn is still. What was that?
It loosened its belt. That's what a couple of
that is yes.
At Disneyland Disneylanders who worked at the original park told me. They said yes, the park finally had to loosen its belt to include all of these things Walt wanted.
Yes, because the Matterhorn was was still fairly new, but no Space Mountain, no Big Thunder Mountain, no Splash Mountain, no Indiana Jones Adventure, no Star Wars area. So it's a mighty different park back then, very different. So, but it's got the Matterhorn and it's got the subs, and those are, new and exciting, and it's the old Fantasyland and all that. So it's quite a different park back then. But as you explained, there was a lot of stuff that was a lot of excitement going on.
Basically, I think you could say you got your money's worth. You didn't feel that you were cheated. You didn't feel that it was a half-day park,
Right.
and you still felt you couldn't see everything. You still couldn't do everything. And it was still very much.
Speaking of excitement,
park.
that if I wanted to let people know that much more exciting than even this is your books, and I want you to get a plug in for your books.
Well, yes. The end of the year last year, I had 3 books come out. They were supposed to come out every 4 months, but because of the pandemic, my publisher, slowed down the release because, believe it or not, people really weren't buying books. You would think they were because they're locked in at home, but that really wasn't the case. And so I had 3 books come out towards the end of last year. One of them is The Vault of Walt, Volume 9, the Halloween edition, which is filled with nothing but Halloween-oriented stories connected to Disney. And not spooky stories, only Halloween stories. So, for instance, Tower of Terror got struck by lightning on Halloween. So the story of that, Twilight Zone got, Tower of Terror, got struck by lightning. So that story, is in the book. The Halloween celebrations, how they started and how they changed, and a chapter on the legend of Sleepy Hollow, and so all of that. Another book, and I can see why the publisher waited on this, is Hidden Treasures of the Disney Cruise Line. Now, this is not a book designed to get you a discount or pick a better cabin or pick the best time of year to travel, because there's plenty of websites, there's plenty of things where you can get that information. This is a book about the story of the creation of the Disney Cruise Line, and then also details on the ship that people may have missed. In fact, there's an entire chapter devoted to the Queen Mary. There's an entire chapter devoted to the fact that before the cruise line, Michael Eisner was going to buy a 5-story oil tanker and outfit it as a Disney theme park and have it go to ports around the world where they didn't have enough money to build a Disney theme park, or there wasn't enough attendance to keep that park going year-round. So you would have this Disney theme park pull up to this port for about 3 or 4 months and then sail off and then maybe not come back for another 2 or 3 years. So interesting stories, even if you've never been on a Disney cruise or never will be. You have those stories. And then finally, I wrote a book called Secret Stories of Extinct Walt Disney World, which has 100 two-page chapters of attractions and shows and all that have disappeared from Walt Disney World, and that is to be a companion book to Secret Stories of Extinct Disneyland, where I did the same. And here's an exclusive for Sweet Spot. I just turned in the manuscript for my latest book, which will be coming out end of March, early April. It is called Kungaloosh, The Mythic Jungles of Walt Disney World. Now, what that is half of the book is devoted to a complete guide to Adventurers Club, which was on Pleasure Island at Walt Disney World. And so details all of the shows, all of the characters. I have interviews with Imagineers who created the club, including Lynn, who wrote all of the music for the shows. But I realized a lot of people never went to the Adventurers Club, and they know that a lot of people are fond about it, so they may be curious, but they may not be curious enough to buy an entire book. So the other half of the book is devoted to the jungles of Walt Disney World, including a chapter on the Jungle Cruise, including all the differences between that and the Disneyland one and things that have changed in the attraction. I interviewed the Imagineer who created the Trader Sam's Tiki Bar at Disneyland Hotels in Anaheim, and also the Trader Sam Grotto out here in Florida at the Polynesian. And so he gave me a nice long interview about the creation, what is the backstory of all of those, what are the different things you should be looking at, what is the difference between the one at Disneyland and the one in Florida. I have 2 exclusive interviews with Imagineer Joe Rohde. One that talks about the philosophy behind Disney Animal Kingdom that he gave just as Animal Kingdom was opening, and another that he gave in 2006 where he talks about the Yeti and Expedition Everest. There's a chapter about the jungles of Indiana Jones and the Indiana Jones references throughout the Walt Disney World parks. There's a chapter on Pandora and the different flora and fauna, and quotes from the chairman of botany at UC Riverside that Jim Cameron pulled in to use for the movie, and then pulled in to use for Pandora, the world of Avatar, in terms of creating plants that made sense for that world and all of that. So, again, you may be interested in that, but don't look for it until end of March, beginning of April. And as soon as I get off this podcast, I'm sitting and I'm working on my next book, because this is my only source of income. And I hope there are a couple of you out there who like this book. And so I need to fill the space before the 3rd volume comes out of Cleaning the Kingdom. So, because then all the money is going to go to that book. So, it is what it is.
Yes, piles and piles of money. Yes.
Well, we always mention your books on our show and suggest them to listeners when they ask, or when we're in a discussion about a historical topic or something on the show. We always bring your books up.
Thank you so much. That's very gracious. I do work very, very hard on them, and actually even harder than I used to, because now I sort of have this reputation, so I really have to be careful about accuracy. So even if John Hench has told me a story, I've got to double check that story.
Yeah. Well, Jim, it's always great having you on the show. We'll of course have you again soon enough. But thank you so much, and we'll put links in our show notes to your books.
Thank you so much. You both are so gracious, and I really do consider you good friends. Thanks for promoting my books, and thanks for letting me on and talk about Disneyland, and then just let me ramble and ramble and ramble and ramble and ramble because I get so excited.
Oh, that's fine. I enjoy it.
I like it.
Thank you. Okay, well that concludes episode 301 of the Sweet Spot Podcast.
Wow. Jim is great, and I I want him to just keep talking and talking, and sometimes we say something before he moves on to the next topic. But I would monopolize his time if we could, but he's pretty generous with his time with us.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'd always love when Jim comes on. I always learn something new. I don't claim to know it all, but I think I know a lot, and then I always learn something totally new. So, thank you so much to Jim for coming on. Check out all his books. Just search, Jim Korkis, Korkis, and on Amazon. He has lots of books, lots of cool Disneyland, Disney World, Disney history books. So check those out. Also, I wanted to mention real quick, we haven't had a review in a while on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, whatever they call it now. But those help other people find us, and kind of puts us higher in the brackets and when people search Disneyland. So we would love to do that. And I think what I want to do is maybe start bringing back reading those on our outro during this time period. I think that was kind of fun, and I think we're going to bring that back. So get those reviews going, and we'll read those on our next episode. All right, well, hope you enjoyed that. I know that sometimes Disneyland history kind of get overwhelming if you're kind of new to Disneyland history, or we always get listeners that'll say, I grew up going to Disney World. They didn't really know a whole lot about Disneyland, but I found your podcast,
Right.
So I know that, Jim, he knows a lot, and so go back and check out our other episodes, because we have in the past, and we hope to continue to do this. We break down almost every attraction and talk about its history in just one episode.
Yes.
So,
and especially with people like Jim, when Jim is on our show, I mean, you can go back. You can listen to in the archives for free. You can listen to these past episodes, Jim, and he often brings up stuff that you don't find in the official, the corporate slick. Here's Disneyland history. There's stuff that they just kind of don't talk about anymore. Not necessarily negative stuff, but just stuff they don't talk about. And you wouldn't know this stuff unless you read one of Jim's books, or you talk to somebody like Jim.
Deep dive.
So I these deep dives of Disneyland history and filling in the pieces of why things are the way they are and everything, and it's just great. So spread the word, folks. Tell people where you listen. It's pretty easy to find us, and just tell people where you find us and spread the word so that they can listen too.
Sounds good. We'll talk with you next time.